The 2026 FIFA World Cup is supposed to be a celebration, the biggest World Cup ever. More teams, more cities, more matches, more fans, more countries involved than at any point in football history. And yet, months before a ball has even been kicked, a strange conversation has started emerging among supporters. Not about who might win the tournament, not about tactics, not about stadiums, but about whether FIFA is still fully in control of the event it created. Because everywhere you look, new complications keep appearing. Ticket concerns, travel concerns, scheduling concerns, political concerns, security concerns, commercial concerns. Individually, none of these issues necessarily threaten the tournament, but together, they raise an uncomfortable question. Has the World Cup become so large that even FIFA is struggling to manage it? And if that's true, what does it mean for football supporters? Because at the heart of this story isn't FIFA. It isn't sponsors. It isn't governments. It's the fans. The people who spend years saving money for a World Cup experience they may only get once in their lives. And the growing concern is that football's biggest tournament may be drifting further away from them. Before we continue, subscribe if you enjoy deep football documentaries, because this story may become one of the defining conversations of modern football. To understand why people are worried, we need to go back. For most of its history, the World Cup felt surprisingly simple. Even when tournaments became larger and more commercialized, there was usually a clear center of gravity. One host nation, one organizing structure, one football culture temporarily welcoming the world. In Germany in 2006, supporters could travel across the country efficiently. In South Africa in 2010, the tournament revolved around a single national identity. In Brazil in 2014, despite enormous distances, fans still felt connected to one host nation. Even Russia in 2018 and Qatar in 2022 operated under a single organizing framework. But 2026 is different. The tournament will be spread across 3 countries: the United States, Canada, and Mexico, 16 host cities, 48 national teams, 104 matches, the largest World Cup in history. That sounds exciting, and in many ways it is, but that scale changes everything. Think about what that means. A supporter following their national team could potentially face thousands of miles of travel between matches, different immigration systems, different transportation networks, different currencies, different costs, different logistical challenges. The World Cup has always required commitment. But for many supporters, 2026 could become the most expensive World Cup ever. And that matters because football culture has always been built by traveling supporters. The songs, the flags, the traditions, the atmosphere, the memories, those things don't appear automatically. They are created by fans. And the more difficult it becomes for ordinary supporters to attend, the more the character of the tournament begins to change. But travel is only the first layer of the story, because the real challenge begins when you look at the United States. There is no question that America offers extraordinary infrastructure, huge stadiums, airports, hotels, entertainment districts, commercial opportunities unlike anything FIFA has ever seen. That is precisely why FIFA wanted this tournament. But there is also a fundamental cultural difference. Historically, World Cups have often been built around football itself. In America, football will be competing for attention inside one of the most crowded sports markets on earth. NFL, NBA, MLB, NHL, college sports, concerts, entertainment events, corporate tourism. The World Cup will be massive, but it will also be entering an ecosystem where major events happen constantly. And that's where things become interesting. Because FIFA's traditional formula relies on football becoming the center of public life. The question is whether that becomes harder when football is only one attraction among many. And that concern leads directly into another issue: tickets. Historically, ticket prices have always generated debate. But supporters increasingly fear that the World Cup experience is becoming more corporate, more premium, more exclusive, more expensive. FIFA has generated record revenues in recent tournaments. Sponsors continue investing enormous sums. Hospitality packages have become a growing part of the business model. From a financial perspective, this makes perfect sense. The World Cup is one of the most valuable sporting properties on the planet. But football supporters often see the situation differently. Because every premium package sold to a corporate client is potentially one less seat available to a traditional fan. That may sound like a small issue. It isn't. Atmosphere cannot be purchased. It has to be created. Some of the greatest World Cup moments weren't produced by executives. They were produced by supporters who traveled across continents because they love their teams. And when ordinary fans begin questioning affordability, FIFA faces a difficult balancing act. Maximizing revenue, or preserving accessibility. The challenge is that modern football increasingly wants both, and achieving both becomes harder every year. But the biggest concern may not actually be financial. It may be organizational, because this tournament is taking place during a period when FIFA itself has never been more powerful. Revenue records, expanded competitions, new Club World Cups, greater global influence, larger commercial partnerships. On paper, FIFA appears stronger than ever. Yet there's a paradox. The larger football's governing institutions become, the harder it can be to maintain direct control over every aspect of the game. The World Cup now involves governments, security agencies, airlines, sponsors, broadcasters, host committees, local authorities, commercial partners, and countless other stakeholders. The number of moving pieces is enormous. And every additional stakeholder creates another layer of complexity, another negotiation, another compromise, another competing interest. The irony is difficult to ignore. The tournament designed to unite world football has become so large that managing it increasingly resembles managing a multinational corporation. And that's where the story starts becoming bigger than 2026 itself. Because FIFA's expansion strategy didn't begin with this tournament. The organization spent years pushing toward growth. More teams, more matches, more markets, more revenue opportunities. The logic was obvious. Football is the world's most popular sport. Why not make the World Cup even bigger? But every expansion creates trade-offs. 48 teams means more matches. More matches means more travel. More travel means greater logistical pressure. Greater logistical pressure means higher costs. Higher costs affect supporters. And eventually the fan experience becomes part of the discussion. If you're finding this analysis valuable so far, consider leaving a like. It genuinely helps the channel. What makes this situation fascinating is that nobody actually knows how it will end. The World Cup could be spectacular. The stadiums will likely be full. The television audience will be enormous. The football itself may be exceptional. Many concerns surrounding previous tournaments ultimately faded once the matches began. We've seen that before. But that's not really the point. The point is that the concerns exist at all. Supporters aren't questioning whether football will deliver. Football usually does. They're questioning whether the structure around football is becoming too complicated. And that distinction matters. Because football fans have historically tolerated almost anything if the connection between the game and its supporters remained intact. What they struggle to accept is feeling pushed further away from the sport they helped build. And that's where the story reaches its most important stage. This isn't really a debate about travel, or tickets, or scheduling, or logistics. Those are symptoms. The deeper conversation is about control. Who is modern football being built for? The supporter making sacrifices to attend matches, or the institutions trying to maximize growth? For decades, those interests largely moved in the same direction. Now, they sometimes appear to be pulling apart, and FIFA finds itself caught in the middle, because the organization wants expansion, supporters want accessibility, sponsors want visibility, governments want economic impact, broadcasters want audiences, host cities want revenue. Everyone wants something from the World Cup. The challenge is making sure football itself doesn't get lost among those competing priorities. Think about what that means. The World Cup isn't valuable because it is large. It isn't valuable because it generates billions. It isn't valuable because corporations invest in it. It is valuable because football supporters care about it. Everything else comes afterwards. And that may be the real test facing FIFA in 2026. Not whether it can organize the biggest World Cup ever, but whether it can organize the biggest World Cup ever while preserving the feeling that made people fall in love with the tournament in the first place. Because history shows something important. Football can survive bad decisions. Football can survive controversy. Football can survive commercial change. But football struggles when supporters begin feeling disconnected from the game. And now I'd genuinely like to hear your perspective. Do you think supporters are right to be concerned about the 2026 World Cup? Or do you believe these fears will disappear once the football begins? Let me know in the comments below. The 2026 World Cup may become the biggest tournament football has ever seen. The stadiums will be larger. The audience will be larger. The revenues will be larger. Everything will be larger. The question is whether the connection between football and its supporters remains just as strong. Because FIFA may be expanding the World Cup beyond anything we've seen before. But football's greatest strength has never been its size. It's been its people. And as 2026 approaches, that is what will ultimately determine whether this tournament is remembered as a triumph or as a warning. Football has always found a way to matter. The question is whether the people running it remember why.